Wow, how did I do that? I guess I'm on. This is Brother Peter. Tidbits from the Word been on for 42 seconds somehow here, and I hadn't planned on that. I hadn't touched anything, but I got on somehow. But I was sitting here studying in First Kings, and in First Kings chapter 8, studying where Solomon prayed to the Lord. He made a prayer. And as Solomon prayed in verse 54, he said, and it was so, when Solomon had made the end of praying, when he ended his praying, and saw that it was pleasing to the Lord, he turned around to the people, and he arose from before the altar of the Lord. Now he was praying at the altar of the Lord, and the Bible said here, his prayer and supplication. That means that he really was meaning what he said. It's one thing to sit down to dinner, for instance, and put a fork beside you and has a plate of food. And you say your grace over it and you sit there. But you haven't supplicated until you pick the fork up and start eating it. Then you're supplicating. And this is the thing with the Lord. It's one thing to just say, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Well, you said the words, but did you mean it? But if you said it this way, Lord, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray you, Lord, my soul to keep. And Lord, if I should die before I wake, I pray that my soul you would take. Now there's a difference in the way I did that. It's a lot of people say, I know John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, and whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That's not it. To say that verse with some supplication is this. To say, the Lord, God, gave his Son. God, the one that created the heavens and the earth. Think about it as you say it. This God, he believed and thought so much about you and I, the created man that he created, who fell by the sin of the devil. And he so desired to have fellowship with that man that he made a way for that man to reunite with him so that that man could fellowship with him. It cost him his Son. Now, who was his Son? His Son was Jesus Christ. His Son was with him in the beginning, but made flesh, came upon this earth and was made flesh, the second Adam. The first Adam, remember, sinned, and that sin was brought upon all men. So the second Adam came again, as the first Adam came, in the sense of the word. He was not made of man, he was made of the seed that God brought forth through the from Genesis 3:15. God brought a seed through, and that was the seed of Christ the flesh. And that had to be when it was, as it was, when it was, for the time that it was. Now, God's time is not our time. God knew the plan, and he knew when exactly he was going to bring the seed of Christ on the scene for a reason. And there was a time when he brought that on. Now, God created the earth for a time period. God does not live in time, but he created the earth for a time period, the time period being 7,000 years, as near as we can discover by studying the Bible we find that God set up 7 1,000-year dispensations for this earth to house man before he was going to rework the earth again. And he was going to take the same man that's been here, who has not rejected him, who accepts him, and that same man is going to come back and rule and reign and control in that new earth. That new earth being heaven. The heaven that we're going to be in for eternity. Wow, you say you mean the earth next time it comes around is going to be an eternal earth? Well, man is an eternal soul, and if he's an eternal soul and he's going to rule and reign on that earth, and never more again will there be any wickedness or unrighteousness on that earth, and man's going to rule it. Now, what's going to happen is right at the end, after the millennial reign, which is 1,000 years, the devil's going to be loosed from his bottomless pit, and he's going to be able to deceive a great multitude of people as the sand of the sea. And he's going to take those folks with him. Then the great white throne judgment is going to take place. All of those folks and the devil himself are going to be tried. And after that, that new earth and that new heaven and that new city are going to be restored new, completely new. They're going to come down from heaven. God's going to make a complete new earth. And yet he's going to put this body and this soul and this man who's living for eternity on that earth to rule that earth with no more sin. Wow. But this God we're talking about, where we said God gave his son to die on the cross, not for the world itself, for the land mass and whatever. God could speak 1,000,000 worlds into existence with one say he could say 1,000,000 worlds be out here. But he designed with his hand something special here. The Bible said that he made man after his own image, and that he formed woman from the man's rib. He actually took his arms and his hands and he formed the woman and gave this woman to the man as a gift. Now God had given the man the earth to tend, and the animals to name, and the trees and the birds and the bees and everything. God made man with an initiative to tend and work this earth and to name what was on it and to be in charge of it. So man was in charge of this earth. And as he was in charge of this earth, the devil came along and deceived him, and he lost his charge that he had in the form and shape that he had it. Because after he sinned, then he had to make, by the sweat of his brow, he had to make it work. Isn't that sun beautiful? That sun's coming through the window, just coming up this morning. It's beautiful. So man had to work by the sweat of his brow. Now, before he didn't. He could till the land. He could do whatever. He could tend the land. Actually, I don't think he had to do much other than speak it, and it was done. And but this is how man was. Now, back we got into 1 Kings this morning for a minute, and we were talking about Solomon, the way he prayed. He prayed on his knees with his arms stretched out, facing the altar of God, praying to